Hello, Electic's back with another deck tech. This one is going to be a best of three deck, as you can see by their sideboard over here, that actually has real cards in it. So, this is an Abzan midrange deck built around a land destruction combo. The main things we've got working here, we have our threat suite. These two combo really well together. Jade Light Ranger gets us more lands because we do want to be hitting our land drops. We kind of tend to lean towards a more controlling side since we do only have 12 creature threats in the deck. On top of that, in order to make sure we get there, we have our single target removal spells. 3 Assassin's Trophy is an odd choice, but we will get to that in a minute. For sweepers, we have Cry, which is really good against most aggro decks and can really just shut down White Weenie. We also have 3 Settles. We are still a mostly creature-based deck in terms of how we're killing, so wrathing our own board all the time isn't that helpful. Find is either just value or pick a threat, make it big, get rid of all of your opponent's stuff, just depending on the matchup and what the board state looks like at the time. In terms of mid-range, just grinding out value, that's what these three are for. Vraska is kind of our top end, either just win the game on her own, or she is at least a 2-for-1 in terms of coming down, destroying a creature, artifact, or enchantment, and then having to either eat a removal spell or get hit back herself. But even then, 6 mana, get rid of something and essentially fog for a turn isn't the worst. Dawn of Hope and Arguel's Bloodfast, these are a good combo that just grind out a ton of value if your opponent doesn't interact with them. Dawn of Hope making 1/1s to gain you life, Arguel's Bloodfast drawing cards and paying life. If you have both, you get to draw a lot of cards, create a lot of 1/1s, and you're not going to be in too much danger of having to worry about actually flipping the Bloodfast, which we essentially never really want to do. Um, Fringe cases against aggro, it can be helpful, but that's not something we're generally looking for. Now, the main engine of the deck and what we really want to get going are these three. So, Fall of the Thran, destroy all lands, and then the next 2 of your turns, each player is going to get 2 lands back from the graveyard. The goal is to combo that with Phyrexian Scriptures. So turn 5, Phyrexian Scriptures, boost something. Turn 6, destroy all non-artifact creatures, so whatever you boosted is going to be the only thing left on the field. And then you play Fall of the Thran after making your 6th land drop, so it destroys all lands. What happens on the next turn is the third uh, part of Phyrexian Scriptures triggers, exiling all cards from your opponent's graveyard, and then they get to go search their non-existent graveyard for lands that are no longer there. This breaks the symmetry of Fall of the Thran and allows us to actually get ahead on board significantly faster. And against some decks, like Gates, just resolving a Fall of the Thran on its own wins the game because they don't generally have a way to get their gates back. With that, Mending of Dominaria digs us to threats, which is helpful, and then as its third thing, if we play it sometime after Fall of the Thran, we can just get exceptionally ahead on board by getting all of our lands back from the graveyard, a minimum of 2 if we played Fall of the Thran as our 6th turn play. Um, Really, this is just to get us that incremental value and help dig for threats with the potential upside of accelerating. After that, we have our lands. Not perfect, do still have a couple of guild gates in here. I am still trying to finish up my rare land cycle. For sideboard, we have another Dawn of Hope, really good against control decks. Duress, pretty good against control. Ideally, this would be replaced with, say, a second Argyl's Bloodfast to just draw more cards in the matchups where we want that. Seal Away, decent, generally catch-all removal. Chose to go with this instead of Banishing Light, since game one, if we are playing these sagas, most of the time they're going to board in Enchantment Hate, and giving them a 3/3 after they kill something isn't the best. And this can actually catch big creatures too. Moment of Craving, really good against aggro. This kills essentially everything in the mono red deck and almost everything in mono white, and then the gaining life on top of that is exceptionally helpful. Crushing Canopy is an exceptionally good card against mono blue, since almost all of their creatures have flying, and if we know that they can just save a creature with a dive down or something, we can also use the destroy enchantment side of this to kill the Curious Obsession and keep them from drawing cards. Ixalan's Binding, this is good in quite a few matchups, really. Against other mid-range decks, we'll board this in simply because it gets rid of a significant portion of their threats. Against Control, this gets rid of all four of your opponent's Teferis with one card, which is quite good. The other benefit is against something like Gates, you can get rid of all four Colossus and not have to try to kill them multiple times. Eldest Reborn, this is just a catch-all removal spell, total value engine. Vivian, we're not playing any main board, we only have one in the sideboard currently. Ideally, we're going to want 3 or 4 in the sideboard. This card is incredibly good against other mid-range decks or control decks. Against control, you bring her in, and now you have a value engine for the rest of the game. Or your opponent has to spend removal on this instead of something that's actually going to kill them. Carnage Tyrant, incredibly good against control. They have to either play a board wipe or an Eldest Reborn of their own to get rid of it. It is a very good threat, and with Mending of Dominaria, we can actually recur this. Another Vraska, just a big top-end value engine, quite good in the deck. Depends on the matchup for whether you want to bring her in. Against something like Mono Red, she is obviously irrelevant because by the time she comes in, they are trying to have you dead. And that is the deck we'll be playing. I will be back with the games. Here we go for game number 1. Okay, so we are on the draw, and a one-lander we have to mulligan. This is something we can actually keep. If we are against a more aggressive deck, this can be rough, but the Argyl's Bloodfast can hopefully draw us out against a slower matchup. We already have a board wipe, so we are just going to hopefully get a threat or some other piece of interaction. And we are up against Merfolk. This can be really good. A lot of the times Merfolk decks can't kill you exceptionally fast. They are just looking to get value over a few turns by drawing multiple cards. In this case, we're not trying to push something out on turn 2, so I'm just going to play another tapped land here. So I'm going to be taking 6 damage here. So they have 9 on board. 3 more Merfolk is lethal, or 2 and another one of them being a Jade Bearer. Play the Bloodfast, see if our opponent has it. They did miss a land drop, so that is potentially good. Hopefully it means they don't actually have any plays. This is going to come down to what we draw on our next turn, though. So in this instance, I am actually going to transform it. What that allows us to do is play another untapped land and Lyra. If they don't have some form of interaction here, then we get to kill off whatever, ideally this, unless they pump it. Doing the math, we may just have to chump it if they do pump it again. But ideally, we can just kill it and be alive at 3 or more, depending on the situation. So them throwing the counter over there is actually good for us. Now it is just waiting to see what they decide to attack with. So we have to block one of these two or we are just dead. Going to block this one since it has been the one they've invested in. Lyra has first strike, so we just get to eat it and take 4. Going to play a tap land and just pass the turn like I don't have any plays. Drawing the other settle is really good here. Unless they have some way to interact with it, we do get to just wrath anything they attack us with. It will ramp them into land, but ideally we can recover from that. One thing to note here, Lyra does first strike damage. So when if they attack into us, we can eat something with Lyra and then settle to eat everything else, and it just gets them 1 less land. They could also just time out. That would be quite helpful too. Okay. Kumena is unblockable. It's annoying if they attack with just Kumena, because if they pump, we're dead. So I'm going to go to this stage. They haven't played anything. I'm going to settle now anyway. See what they do. So the plan is scriptures, pumping up Lyra. And then, let's see. Going to go ahead and trophy now. This way I know if I need to attack or not, and I do. So they have 3, 5, 7, and up to 1 unblockable. So we have to attack to not just be dead. Sorry, my math was wrong. I am just dead. If I hadn't have tapped this, we could have sacrificed Lyra afterwards. Oh well, on to game 2. So, against Merfolk, Dawn of Hope is a little slow. Crushing Canopy, they don't have any flyers, and they did not play any enchantments. What we are going to want is Moment of Craving, is solid removal against them. What don't we want? They do a lot of tapping their own creatures. I'm going to get rid of the Assassin's Trophies here. And the Bloodfast. I don't expect it to be good in follow-up games. And I think we will get rid of 1 Vraska's. We want to keep in all of our board wipes here, since they are really good against Go White decks. It does take people a minute to sideboard against this deck. A no lander has to be mulliganed. And this is something we can keep. We'll go Guildgate into a Tomb, into Dawn of Hope, and then we have Scriptures to keep us from dying. Going to keep the Settle. I assume Merfolk is always on the go wide plan, so we just have to draw a 4th land. Go ahead and play it tapped. No reason to lose life. It's not like we could activate the Dawn of Hope that soon anyway. Again, they missed a land drop, which is really good for us. Just going to go ahead and pass the turn. There's no reason to play anything in our hand out. And we can activate Dawn of Hope end of turn. 1/1 lifelinklers will outrace a 1/1 unblockable. End of turn, activate the Dawn of Hope. No fifth land, so we are going to attack and draw a card. Play that tapped and pass the turn. Our opponent gave the oops, I'm not sure exactly why. And they do have green mana now. Not going to draw a card. Instead, going to play Lyra and force them to continue interacting with us. If they can't, this could just overrun them. And if they do decide to go on the go wide plan, which they obviously are, we do have scriptures, which is at least a fog. So I'm just going to go to combat and attack. Not going to draw a card right now. Instead, going to play Mending. We'll let them try and fill up the board now. 22 is a very safe life total to be at. And we hit a Jadelight Ranger off of that, which is really good. That can dig us to our 6th land drop, or just any other relevant removal, even though we are currently sitting on 3 board wipes in hand. So we take 7 and go to 15. Go ahead and leave Multani in the graveyard. And since we're going to be going in with the team here anyway, going to pump Lyra, make her a 6/6, attack with both for 7, effectively negating their last turn's attack and putting them to 5. So then, assuming they can't do 22 damage out of nowhere, what this results in is we are going to wrath their board and then get 2 lands back into play for free, putting us to 7 and allowing us to Fall of the Thran right before we go into the next stage. Or they could just not play a flyer and Lyra has them dead on board. So this is 20, leaving us at 2. Or no, it was only 18. Okay, all non-artifact creatures are dead. We're going to attack. And that is game 2. Now we get to see if we want to change anything for game 3. I think we are good with the current configuration. Crushing Canopy could be good against the Deep Root Waters, but I don't actually think we need it here. Yeah, I'm going to leave it as is. It seems our opponent is playing a pretty aggressive mana base. Maybe only 18, 19 lands, which works for mono red when you don't have anything really above a 3-drop, or mono blue where you can just draw so many cards with Curious Obsession. The Merfolk deck really wants to get to multi-spelling turns. Um, Drop a Lord, drop a 2-drop, stuff like that. They really want to hit those turns. Or get to, I don't remember the name of the card off the top of my head, the one that allows Merfolk to draw cards when they hit the opposing player. Um, as such, that means Merfolk really, really want to get to their 4th land. Okay, here we go. This will decide match 1. This is a definite keep. We aren't doing anything until turn 4, but all 3 of our turn 4 plays are very important here. Ideally, we'll draw some second or third turn interaction. Cry of the Carnarium is our best card in this matchup. We just haven't drawn it in the first 2 games. What this tells me is our opponent kept another land light hand. Hopefully that means our bit slower draw is going to be able to just overpower anything they do. Okay, so we do have the combo to just go for the blowout here. Should we survive long enough? Which I think with the plays we have leaning up to Fall of the Thran, it shouldn't be too difficult. I don't think I mentioned it much in the deck, but the big reason we're playing Settle the Wreckage and Assassin's Trophy is at some point those are just going to turn in to get rid of target thing, win the game. But up until then, going to seal away the Lord. Efficient single target removal when they only have 1 threat is good, and it forced out a negate, which is really good because that means we are far more likely to resolve our 3 big things. So here, going to go with an untapped land into Seraph of the Scales and just see what our opponent is able to do about this. Seraph of the Scales is one of the big reasons we are in black and white. It's such an efficient card. Yeah, and our opponent isn't willing to attack into it. This means we get to go Godless Shrine for Rexian Scriptures, pump the Seraph. We could have put this in untapped and given the Seraph Vigilance, but that's not too big of an issue here. Our big goal is just to blow them out next turn with the Fall of the Thran. And ideally, we'll draw another land, because then we can immediately go back up to 5 lands in 2 turns, while our opponent has hopefully none, and get Lear out onto a fairly empty board on their side. Against their deck, if they have bounce, it's not that helpful. It allows them to get in 6 damage, they lose the lords anyway. If they have something that kills it, we still get 2/2/2s. They're going to die to Phyrexian Scriptures, but that still ate a removal spell and didn't actually cost us much. Okay, so they bounce it, they're going to do 6 damage, they're going to lose both lords, and then we're going to destroy all of their lands and have a Seraph of the Scales to just replay. And we did draw another land, which is great. So Fall of Thran, get rid of all of the lands. Get rid of their graveyard. Get back 2 lands. We're going to go for the Godless Shrine and a Temple Garden. Both of them tapped. Since we don't have a 2 or 3 drop, get to play a land from our hand. And next turn we will be at 5 mana. So we have the choice of either playing a Seraph or throwing out Lyra again. I think I'm going to get this tapped and a Sun Petal Grove. Play the Seraph. They know it's in hand. This is the safer route. And then just go ahead and pass the turn. So our opponent makes that a 3/3, which is annoying. Does still have Summoning Sickness. The only thing they can attack with is the 1/1. Hit for 4, play Cry, and end the turn. This is leaving me open to a crackback, but I think we are in good shape here overall. Okay, so that's why they dumped everything onto 1, is so they could get that up and running. The easy answer to that is Lyra, give the Seraph Vigilance, and hit them with a 5/4 Vigilant Lifelinker. That is a very good card in these go wide decks. What it essentially does is all of your creatures have pseudo convoke, or reverse convoke in a way, and can then, in 1 turn, it basically gives you a Vraska emblem. Or not Vraska, Vivian emblem. Our opponent can't actually attack in because we do have a 5/5 first strike, which will kill the 4/4. So with no cards in our opponent's hand, this is a fairly safe attack to go in with both. We'll go up to 24. and then play another Seraph. So we have 15 lifelinking power in the air, and our opponent only has 7 damage on board. They can pump something, um, so this could be an 8/8 flyer, but that is still not enough to kill us. Especially since we can just block it with a Seraph. Okay, so they make it an 8/8. And I assume we will see a concession here, unless they just want to play it out. Okay. So I'll block one there and one there. We only have to have one creature survive. Give it death touch. Not that it's overly relevant, since blocking with it was basically removing it, or attacking with that was essentially removing it anyway. And 12 damage on board, all flying, with no blockers. Pretty good match 1 win. I'll be back in a minute with game 2. Here we are for match 2. We won the flip for game 1. We are going to definitely play first. And this is a risky keep. If we draw another green source, which most of our lands, other than the Godly Shrines, the basic, some of that stuff, um, are non-green. If we get a second green source, Jiglet Ranger should be good enough. Opponent mulligan, and go ahead and play the green one first. Okay, blue-black, could be Esper, could be Demir Disinformation Campaign. That would be really annoying. We'll see what they decide to take. This deck does have the advantage of just being able to grind through a lot of hand hate most of the time. We did not draw a third land, so we are just going to have to pass the turn. Grixis Control looks like. Against a control deck, I don't think Settle is that good. Go ahead and graveyard it there. A Nicol Bolas to the graveyard means that they are either digging for land or they already had one and had another threat of some kind in hand. Grixis Drakes, maybe? Um, Going to go ahead and play the Seraph. Currently, it can just eat a Crackling Drake, which is good for us. Or it forces them to use a removal spell. Okay, so land go from them. going to go ahead and attack with the Seraph, see if they're interested in casting a bunch of spells in order to keep their Crackling Drake alive, or if they're just going to take 4 damage here. So they have something. Okay. Interesting. I'm going to go ahead and give this Death Touch. Yeah, it's a 2-1, but it's still going to eat the Crackling Drake this way. Net result, we get 2 1/1 flyers and a post-combat Jade Light. We really need land here more than anything. It's Kanta flipped. And there is Niv Mizzet. Goal is just to dig for land or removal. The Phyrexian Scriptures is good here. It will kill the Niv Mizzet and then permanently exile their graveyard. Unless they get rid of it. Main board Duress is an interesting one. Yep, take the Phyrexian Scriptures. Easy choice. Going to get rid of a Seraph. We have another one in hand. Gonna go ahead and chump that. If they want to trade their Nicol Bolas, cool. They do have enough mana to flip it, so it'd be really odd if they did. Still on the dig for land plan. So they have some instant in hand. That's good here. Go ahead and get a Godless Shrine. Not gonna waste my life right now. It would cost 4 to shock it in and to play and activate Argyll's Bloodfast. And I think we may be taking too much damage as it is. So the Duress, they have the choice of either Vraska or Find Finality. Yep, Vraska was definitely the right choice. So the only option here is to play Lyra to make sure we are not just dead on board, which we may be anyway. Yeah, Enough instants and sorceries, Ral just kills Lyra, and we are dead. Go ahead and concede this one and move on to the next game. Dawn of Hope is really good. Cry of the Carnarium kills absolutely nothing. Cast Down doesn't interact with their main threats. Moment is too small. Eldest Reborn is really good. Carnage Tyrant is really good. Crushing Canopy kills anything with flying. Think having the Crushing Canopies is going to be better than the Settles. And I think I'm going to cut one Multani for the Ixalan's Binding. That can kill any threat they played, which is good. No playables. Go ahead, mulligan. This looks decent. We do definitely want a fourth land here or a Jade Light Ranger. Seraph is good, but I think we're just going to need the land more than that. Go ahead and start off with the Guild Gate. Go ahead and put this in tapped. Play the Bloodfast. Now we can start drawing cards as needed. Big thing is we are going to be still digging for lands. Okay. No fourth land, just going to main phase draw a card, hit the land, and pass the turn. This bluff's having a removal spell, and since they're doing nothing, going to go ahead and draw another card. And Jade Light, I think, is the play here. Yep. Dug us to yet more land, which puts us in a good position. Okay, Lava Coil. That is a pretty good removal spell. Downside is it doesn't kill one of these. So we'll see what they have to interact with Lyra here. Niv-Mizzet is definitely good. We will just play the Vraska and kill it. And the concession. That was quick. Okay, so we didn't really see anything else out of our opponent there that we hadn't already. As such, I think I'm just going to ship this back as is. Opponent's taking a minute to sideboard here. Um, Here we go. Not entirely sure why we didn't really show them that much more from our deck. This is definitely a mulligan. I think I'm actually going to keep this and hope I draw action. The Crushing Canopy will kill whatever threat they play, and they're not an overly threat-dense deck. Find Finality, I don't think does much in this matchup. The big thing is just getting value out of it later in the game. And the Duress getting rid of our only non-land card. But we did draw Lyra, and she could take over the game given the opportunity. So we'll hope we can get there. We even have 2 white sources to be able to cast her now, so that's good. Our opponent's deck seems to be built around just getting to turn 5 or 6. So hopefully that means we can survive long enough to get there as well. We've seen everything but the settle. Go ahead and get out the white sources. Want to make sure we have double of all of our colors. We'll just play out what they've seen, not show them anything extra. Main facing card draw means that they... Oh, sorry, that was my end step. Never mind. Okay, Ra is good. He's just going to dig cards up for them. Hopefully we can get something to get rid of him before he hits his ultimate. And we did. Ixalan's Binding against Grixis, they have almost no way to interact with this, which is really good. And any other copies they draw of Raw, if they have any more, are simply dead cards. I'm just going to run out the Vraska here. If it gets countered, it gets countered. So the big thing is eventually we will draw a Mending of Dominaria, and then lands in our hand are no longer, or cards in our graveyard are simply threats that we get to recur again. Go ahead and main phase since they don't have counter magic up, and we do actually want to get rid of that. Okay, Thief is only relevant while it's attacking. So we only have 2 white sources. Not actually going to play anything here. Four cards in hand. Hopefully they don't have counter magic. If they do, that is definitely annoying. And the Duress is going to get rid of our Settle. Yep. Now we'll see what they hit. As a mid-range deck, either they hit lands or they hit good cards. We'll see if they counter this. Okay, so they're drawing. And there's the counter spell. If we don't draw action, we may just lose here, but we will see what comes up. At this point, basically just jamming every card. I assume they have more hand hate, so holding anything in hand isn't actually going to accomplish anything for us. And that was a mistake. I should have definitely bottomed that. Um, Although the Jade Light will outrace the Thief of Sanity, they have to play this. And if they don't exile it, then we automatically know that, or if they do take it, then we'll know because it'll be 2 non-cards. There we go. So they do have one of those there. They did hit one of our mendings, so we're not going to be recurring a Lyra immediately. We are going to be dead pretty quick here unless we draw something good. And it doesn't get countered. This isn't necessarily something good. Gonna play it anyway. Just see what there is and then scoop, because we are definitely dead. And that is game or match 2. I will be back in a minute with match 3. And here we are for match 3. Definitely want to be on the play. And with this hand, I think I'm going to keep this and hope our opponent is on some sort of aggro deck and we can draw a black-green land would be the best here. Go ahead and run out our guild gate. Okay, so against green decks, playing Llanowar Elves, cast down. That is its purpose. It is not always the best, but a lot of the time, we did not hit a third land, which is rough. This is the red-green aggro deck. Gonna go ahead and cast down that. We can't wait till their turn, since it has hexproof then. We do really need land, though. There's one. We can cast Cry, but it doesn't actually do anything. Also, these things shut off Settle the Wreckage, since it gives them hexproof, and Settle the Wreckage targets your opponent. Gonna pay 2 life, play the Phyrexian Scriptures, no targets. So unless they have 6 damage in hand that they can just play out, anything else they play is just going to instantly die. So that turned out pretty good for us. The Pel Collector dies. It would get a 1/1 counter if it still existed. I'm going to shock that in. That is risky, since we are dead to a Banefire or something. But having the 5/5 lifelinker against a deck that plays a bunch of 3/3s, 4/4s, stuff like that, the 5/5 can simply overrun them. Okay, so we exile their graveyard. Going to attack, put us up to 9. They do only have one red source, and most of their haste threats do require red mana. Play the Mending, didn't hit any creatures. Hit 2 board wipes, which could be risky. But against 3/3s, 4/4s, a lot of the threats this deck is playing, Cry doesn't kill them. Gonna go ahead and play the Jade Light. Hit land. Not bad. Going to attack with Lyra, put me back up to 13. And then I can either trade or chump with the Jade Light depending on what they do. So they'll go get the 3rd copy, they can play it immediately, and adapt it to get the 4th copy. Gonna go ahead and block, only take 4. Play it. Oh, they already had the 4th copy in hand. Okay, so that kind of tells them what I have. We have already gotten rid of 2 Spellbreakers, which is good. If they have the 3rd or 4th copy, which would be rough, then we are dead here. If they don't, we get to settle, wrath their board, and then Lyra kills them. Okay, they don't have it. They have to have a reach creature or a flying threat in hand, or they are dead. Yep, Lava Coil doesn't do it. Hit him with a 5/5. And on to game 2. Okay, so in this matchup, this doesn't kill anything. This is probably too slow and doesn't kill any of their creatures, or at least none of the ones we saw. This is probably too slow to bring in. Seal Away answers all of their threats. Moment of Craving answers most of them. Do I actually want it, though? That is the question. So, Arguel's Bloodfast is out. Trading life for cards in this matchup isn't necessarily good. I'm going to cut 1 Multani, just a little too slow. Cut 1 Vraska, again, a bit too slow. what else to cut here. Maybe go back down to one moment, just keep one in. Gives us a heavier early game interaction. I think this is a good place to be. Getting the game one win definitely helps here. Opponent's definitely playing first. And I think this is a keep. We have more early interaction, so if we do draw it, that's good. And we are more likely to draw it than we were game one. Run that out tapped. Then if we draw a removal spell, we will play to kill what they cast. We didn't, so that means Godless Shrine tapped, and then next turn we Jade Light. The turn after that we can Seraph, depending on what we draw. Lean in for 4. Board wipe is very good. The Jade Light can trade with the Growth Chamber Guardian, which is fine, since we can just recur it with Mending. Don't have Collision Colossus, which is good. Hopefully they don't have a 4th land either. That would definitely put us in a good spot here. Okay, so they're going to go Pelt Collector, grow it by casting Growth Chamber. A pair of 2/2s is definitely something we can answer. But I think running out the Seraph is going to be our best bet. So they have to either remove it or trade the Growth Chamber Guardian with it. Or if they don't play something that's a 3/3 or bigger, the Seraph simply gets to eat a Pelt Collector if they attack with it. Gonna go ahead and block, force their mana. We know it's safe to block here because if they had Collision Colossus, they would have just played it pre-combat. So I'm just going to play the Mending. They are not really pressuring us, which is good. And we can get... I'm going to get the Seraph back. Definitely the bigger threat. And I'm not going to attack, so we can just chump. They have to play a 4/4 or larger, or the Pelt Collector is not going to get any bigger. And it has to get bigger at least a little bit in order to get Trample. Okay, now it has Trample. No blocks. We have the City's Blessing, so now if we need to start drawing, we can activate Arch. Next turn, all their stuff is going to get board wiped, and we can just chump as needed here. Yes, this is going to draw them a card, but it's taking 4 less damage, which is something we need to be concerned about right now. I don't know why you would play the Llanowar. Run out the Seraph. Run out the Lyra we drew, which was an amazing draw. We now have two 5-power lifelinkers. It's not something we can really interact with. Going to go ahead and give this Vigilance. Swing for 10. Play another Seraph. And play the revealed Jade Light. Leave that on top. We just want threats. Nothing else is that relevant now. And they have to be able to answer 3 flyers or they're dead. And that is a second match win. We are at 2-1, and I will be back with match 4. Here we are for our 4th match. Our opponent won the flip. This is a pretty good hand. 4 lands into Assassin's Trophy and Jadelight Ranger. Definitely something we are after. Someone running Chandra and not playing mono red. Not what I was expecting. Forsaken Sanctuary, we'll see what we're actually up against. History, interesting. That warrants an Assassin's Trophy. Um, the history is something that can be quite annoying to deal with. And I'd rather just get rid of it before they get 3 cards out of 1. I don't think the Bloodfast is going to be good here. We do already have the land in hand, so we'll leave the mending there. This allows us to let our Jade Light either eat stuff or just trade off with their things, because we can simply recur it later. Play that tapped. No attacks. There's no reason to let them get in free damage here. So Tithe Taker, that doesn't really affect us, since we do still have 3 mana up. That is something we are definitely going to want to kill, though. Okay, so that's going to give all of the knights +2 power. So 15, 20. Yeah, I think we are just dead. The double history start from black-white seems to be just a bit more than this draw could handle. One more blocker and we would have survived there. But I don't know what we were actually drawing live to. So Bloodfast goes out. Things that we want. Moment kills all of their creatures. Vraska, I think, is just going to be too slow. Multani is a bit too slow. I think that's how I'm going to run it. Seal Away could be good, but I think I would have to take out too many threats and or board wipes to put it in. So I'm going to run it like this. Going to be on the play. And removal followed by Seraph, I think, is something we can keep. Them being off tempo with no 1-drop is good. A Knight of Malice. I think I'm just going to run out the Jadelight Ranger. Definitely want Cry of the Carnarium in this. Going to play the Seraph. The Seraph keeps one of the Knight tokens from attacking. Totally fine taking 3 from that. Snubhorns are annoying, they don't die to Cry. Take 3. Get in for 4. Okay. Go ahead and cast down the other one post-combat. And now our opponent has no board and we're sitting on a Seraph of the Scales with a second one in hand. Gonna go ahead and give my Seraph Vigilance. Hit for 4. Play the second one. So now we have lethal on board. Our opponent has to interact with these angels. And they don't have it. So for game 3, yeah, there is an argument to bring in the Seal Away here, but I think our big thing is killing the Knights, and they don't get tapped. Our opponent is drawing a lot of History of Benalia, and Seal Away just does not answer those. So I think we are going to keep it as is. Definitely another good keepable hand. Moment of Craving kills almost everything in their deck. It's going to go away though. And now we are trying to live till turn 4 so then we can just curve Seraph into Seraph into Seraph, which is definitely not a bad place to be. It's going to run out the land they know about. If we live long enough, Find Finality is really good too. That's turning into a pretty big if though. That was the wrong land. I forgot I did not have planes out. Um, that may have just cost us the game. We'll see. Yeah. And we are just dead on board to all of the knights getting pumped. Tribunal's entirely unnecessary here. We are already just dead, but that will definitely seal it. Not a great finish. We ended up 2-2. Nothing too great out of here. But 1,000 gold does net me another draft. I should be recording that too and uploading it for you guys to watch. Pack for weekly wins. Go ahead and let you see what that was. A Bedevil, definitely good. So, Abzan mid-range. I think this deck definitely has some power. Um, our big thing is it's hard to interact with some of the more aggressive decks in the format. Against some of the grindier, more control decks, we do have enough threats to keep them on their toes, and enough removal that their limited threats can just be answered. Really, I think the big thing is this deck struggles when it doesn't hit land. We saw that the first match or first couple of matches where we hit 2 lands, kept, and then just didn't draw another one for a couple of turns. That can really shut this deck down. Um, Another difficult thing is you really want double casting cost spells. The Jadelight Ranger and Cry of the Carnarium, really things you want to be hitting on turn 3. That's when they are normally best. Um, Deck really wants to curve out, and to do that, you have to be running all of the dual lands. The other big thing is the sideboard is a little iffy still. Just tried to get the main deck finished before I moved on to the sideboard, so that's part of it. Things we want. Arguel's Bloodfast is really bad in all of the aggro matchups. Paying life is not a good place to be. Um, Dawn of Hope is a bit slow for those two, but does help stabilize once we bring in our other cheap removal to get through that. We didn't play against the traditional Esper control deck. Um, that is an interesting matchup. Basically, it comes down to, can we interact with your Teferi? If we can't, we lose. If we can, then eventually we are just going to grind you out of the game. And especially in sideboarded matches where we bring in Eldest Reborn, Vivian, Carnage, and a second Vraska, those can just overrun the Esper control decks. We only had the combo go off once against Merfolk, and that game I think we might have been winning anyway, so it wasn't too big a deal. Uh, the main advantage of the combo is against some of the slower, more mid-range decks. If you play against, say, Simic Nexus or something like that, and they don't just kill you on turn 4 or 5, then curving into Fall of the Thran completely shuts down their game plan. They have to be casting multiple spells a turn, and if they can't, they lose. And then sideboard, we can bolster it with Crushing Canopies and Ixalan's Binding. Ixalan's Binding on Wilderness Reclamation basically turns off their deck. They have to answer it or they can't win. Anyway, that is the deck. Any thoughts or comments, please leave them in the comment section below. If you liked the video, please like, and if you would like to, please subscribe. I hope to be publishing more Magic the Gathering and Magic the Gathering Arena content, and then possibly branching out into other games. Um, this is a good starting point for me, and I hope you have enjoyed my content so far. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Thank you.